Well, good morning and a very warm welcome to the latest Meet the Employer event from Evenbreak's Career Hive. And today we're really happy to have Airwave, who are part of Motorola, with us today. And as you know, these are opportunities for candidates to find out more about each of our employers, find out about their recruitment process, how to access adjustments if they need them, and also to ask any questions. So please, as we go through, if you have any questions, if you can just drop them into the questions box that you can see hopefully on the right-hand side of your screen, and then I'll come to those when I've finished asking my questions. But do start thinking of those now as we go through. So as you can see, we have a captioner on the line so that you can have subtitles and also a British Sign Language interpreter. This is being recorded, so if you want to see it again, then it'll be on the Hive, so you'll be able to capture it there. So a very warm welcome to the three Matts from Airwave. Just to explain, it isn't actually the fact that they have three people called Matt Eli on working for Airwave, it's just that they shared their link to get on. So we don't actually have three Matts, although I'm sure the world would be better placed with three Matts in it. But so first of all, if I can welcome the real Matt Eli from Airwave. Would you just like to introduce yourself, Matt, and say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Jane. Thanks for the invite. Lovely to be here. So I've worked for Airwave, which is part of Motorola, for just coming up to 4 years, work in the HR team, and my title is the recruitment and training lead for the business. We have an internal recruitment team, look after all our vacancies and all the training requests that come in throughout the year from the business as well.
Thanks very much. And Sadie, can I ask you to introduce yourself, please, as opposed to Matt number 2?
Of course. My name is Sadie Tyers. I am the Senior HR Advisor and I predominantly look after the Airwave side of the business, so work really closely with Matt as well.
That's great, thank you. And we also have Mary Kate, who is at some ridiculous early hour of the morning over in the States from Motorola. So Mary Kate, welcome. Do you want to just introduce yourself?
Thanks, Jane, definitely. So I'm Mary Kate Callahan. I sit in our Chicago office. I work as a HRS consultant, so I'm really a liaison between our business and our technical teams as we configure our Workday HRS system. And I've been at Motorola for just under 4 years.
Thanks very much. So great to have all of your perspectives with us. So Airwave is part of the larger Motorola business, and Airwave particularly works on communication within the emergency services. So a very important role indeed. Can I just ask Matt, first of all, could you tell us about the breadth of roles? What kind of roles is there available within Airwave?
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, we're a telecommunications company at heart with a lot of IT support functions. So you'll notice the roles that we have posted with yourself, Jane. There are quite a lot of what we class as niche roles, a lot of engineers, a lot of architects, designers. We have a live network that you've alluded to that the emergency services use. So we have roles where you're out in the field maintaining that network, and then also roles back in the office and at home where you're monitoring the network to make sure that it's performing, and then all the support roles that go alongside that. So project management and project coordinators. We've got obviously HR as a support function, the administrators. Because we're such a big company as well, then the breadth continues to obviously health and safety, estates, and it goes from there. So generally IT, telecommunications, but then all the support functions that would go into that. I know globally there's around 18,000 employees in Motorola, and in the UK around 750. And as Sadie, Mary Kate and myself would allude to, we're not the technical people that have all the knowledge to do with the network. So we're examples of the support roles that exist within the business.
So it's very broad then. I mean, if people are thinking, oh, it's just for geeks, IT people, it isn't at all. It's although obviously there are lots of software and technical people that you employ, there's also lots of other kinds of roles within the organisation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you say that you have a standard recruitment process for all, that go through most of the roles, or does it kind of vary depending on the role itself?
Yeah, so relatively standard for most of our roles, and then there is probably kind of 2 separate processes that run alongside. So we do run some assessment centres when we're looking for our customer service and IT advisors, or our network monitors, and sometimes the field engineers, where we would get lots of applications. We don't want to just narrow that down to 3 or 4 interviews. We'd like to see a wider range of candidates. So we will run some assessment centres, which could be the best part of a full day spent with us, normally before the pandemic, with some food and drink as well, and well looked after. And then the other side of the process, we've got the normal standard interview process, one-on-one, which we would go through, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit more detail as well. And then at the moment, a lot of virtual interviews, as I'm sure everyone is doing, is the other process, which has been an adjusted process for us that we've had to get used to. And it's enabled us, certainly with our catchment area. Jane, you will know that Rugby, Basingstoke is where a lot of our roles are normally based, but we've been able to look a lot more remotely due to the pandemic, and I'm sure Sadie will speak as well throughout this call about some of the roles now becoming remote when they weren't before. So that's opened up that, and been able to meet people virtually and take them through the interview process has been different. It's something we've never done before, but it absolutely shows that it can work, and you can look at people that don't just need to be in that local office area.
That's great, isn't it? I mean, the pandemic has been absolutely devastating, but I think one silver lining is that we're much more open to remote working, flexible working, and things like that at the moment. Before we go on to that, could you just, if our candidates are looking at roles on our board and they're saying, yeah, that's something I could do, but they may need adjustments in the recruitment process due to their disability, how would they go about asking for those adjustments?
Yeah, so firstly, apply for the role. If you haven't seen something on the job, don't let that put you off. So apply for it and then put those questions to us. So you would get to speak to a recruiter if you're shortlisted for the vacancy. And then that conversation with the recruiter is a 2-way conversation to have that discussion. And then once we've had that and we're arranging the interviews, we always put on our communication out to the candidate that if any adjustments need to be made that we haven't discussed, please let us know. But I'd be interested to know as well, any questions that come in, what else could we do, should we do to make that even more of a level playing field? Because again, we'll discuss on this call that we're not the finished article at the moment. We're on a journey, as you know, and Evenbreak really helped kick that journey off around a year ago now. And we've got the disability confident at the committed stage. We're looking to move to employer this year and then leader thereafter. But really hoping to learn from events like this and the feedback that we get on what else we could and should be doing.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And are you able to reassure candidates that if they do ask for adjustments, it won't count against them in terms of, oh, I'm not sure they could do this job then?
Yeah, absolutely won't count against them. Don't be afraid to ask anything. Sadie, I think you got a story of when you joined us that you asked a question, didn't you? And that's the right thing to do.
Oh yes, could you tell us your story?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, it was more for me. It was more around. I wanted the role as part-time. It advertised as full-time, but asked the question at that point and was able to come in with some reduced hours and some flexibility. So, if you're better off asking that question rather than thinking, oh, I'm not quite sure, I'm not going to apply for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I often think, what's the worst thing that can happen? If, someone says no, nobody dies, it's fine, isn't it? So definitely.
Exactly.
Exactly what Sadie would say, because Sadie now answers a lot of those questions that come in. And what is the worst that we can say? We'll look at it, and reasonable adjustments will be absolutely made if possible. If not, then it will be a no with a justification, but we'd certainly look at every opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's really good to hear. So yeah, if you could talk a little bit more about the flexibility of the roles now. I mean, Sadie, you just sort of said that obviously part-time or reduced hours is something that Airwave will look at, but you know, what are the opportunities for, say, remote working now?
We would look at it on everybody at the moment is, well, the majority of our employees at the moment are working from home due to the pandemic. Some of our roles do have certain bases. So if we look at our customer service team, then they are more predominantly rugby or rugby based. But again, ask the question, we do have a number of our roles that are flexible and do offer home working. So if we look at our project management team, all of our field engineers are obviously out in the areas as well. So again, don't let it always put you off. So if one of the roles doesn't have that it's a home working role, then come and talk to us and see if it's something that we can do.
Yeah, so it's good, isn't it, that organisations are much more open to remote working now.
I was just going to bring Mary Kate in, because I know our CEO, Greg Brown, has been speaking about how the kind of roadmap coming back into the business as well, Mary Kate, as a company.
Yeah, so right now, like Sadie said, most people are working from home. And, you know, I think depending on the organization that you're in, we're going to be kind of slowly rolling people back into the office. So it'll look a little different for every organization. You know, it might be, you know, you're in 1 or 2 days a week with your team. But I think the biggest piece of advice I have is, you know, whether we're in this COVID period or not, like communication is key. And I think like Matt and Sadie both alluded to, like ask the questions, have a conversation with the recruiters or the hiring managers about, you know, is flexible work an option? But I also think the same goes for when you do start at a role, like continue to have that open dialogue with your manager about, you know, maybe different accommodations that you need or different flexible hours that you need, because when you're able to have that open conversation, it's going to make you feel more comfortable in the role, but it's also going to make like your manager understand what you need as an employee to be as successful as you can be. So I think the biggest takeaway or biggest piece of advice I would have for anyone is really just communication is key.
Yeah, for sure. And it's great that you're an organisation that will have that dialogue, because we know that a lot of organisations kind of shut down when disability is mentioned or flexibility is mentioned. And I know that Airwave and Motorola are very happy with those conversations and actually learn from people, because as we know, disabled people, we are the experts in our own access needs, and actually, you know, usually we'll tell you what we need, and that's, you know, it's good to know that there's a company there that's listening.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because I think for me, as I've been in a wheelchair since I was 5.5 months old, and I think as I've grown up, I've realized like at the end of the day, like I'm my own best advocate, and like excuse me, and like no one knows what you need better than yourself, and so to be able to vocalize what you need and in a way for other people to understand, again, to make you as successful as you can be. Yeah, I think like continue to advocate for what you need and what other people like you need, because that's how we're gonna, you know, break a stereotype of disability or change the way that disability is really perceived in the workplace.
So as a wheelchair user, Mary Kate, what's your experience been working for Motorola? Have you had to fight for things, or has it been easier? Has it been?
It's been amazing. Like I said, I started at Motorola right out of university. And so, you know, Motorola was like the first, you know, full-time job that I've had. And, you know, from day one, it's been such an inclusive environment. I think, you know, going back to stories, one of the first couple weeks of being at MSI, you know, I had in-person interviews and, you know, was offered the job. And then, you know, the first couple of weeks I was at my desk working, and I see them installing automatic doors on every single floor in our Chicago headquarters. And I think that right there is, you know, them taking a step on this journey. And like Matt said, it is a journey. And like, you know, they didn't have the automatic doors when I got there, but they understood how important it is to, you know, maybe a wheelchair user like myself, but then to see, you know, employees without disability utilizing it because they're carrying their laptop and their coffee. And I think it's really showing people what universal design really is, and how it's, you know, not just thinking about that person with a disability or that employee with a disability, it's how everyone can benefit from it. So, you know, I think being part of the People with Disabilities Council has also been amazing, just, you know, not only for us all to come together, but for us all to come together, share our perspectives, but then go back to the company and share that perspective with all employees. And, you know, we've had some really special panel discussions where, you know, we as the council have gotten up and created an environment for employees to ask questions that they may have never been able to ask before. You know, we've had questions all the way from of like, when I'm having a conversation with you, do you want me to stand? Do you want me to sit in the chair next to you? Like, what is that like? And, you know, that may come off as a quote unquote dumb question, but for me, like, there's no such thing. And like, until someone is able to ask that question and learn, like, they don't know. And so like, us doing this event, us doing panels, us as a community coming together, like that's how we're going to educate society and continue to push that needle forward. So yeah, it's been a really amazing experience, and I'm so fortunate to be at the company, in a company that's, you know, not settling for status quo.
I mean, that's great to hear, because disability is often the elephant in the room, isn't it, that everybody knows about but nobody talks about because they're frightened of saying the wrong thing or looking silly or whatever it is. But actually, if you're fostering an environment where it becomes a topic of conversation like the weather or what was on telly last night, whatever it is, then. And also, I think the, as you say, it's a journey for every organisation, you know, Evenbreak included. But it's one of those journeys that gets easier over time, because the more disabled people that you employ, the easier it is to have those conversations, and the more every day it becomes, the more ordinary it becomes, rather than something that's kind of, oh my goodness, somebody who's disabled, what are we going to do, that kind of thing. So
Absolutely.
So what would you advise our candidates to do if they apply? How are they going to shine? What are you really looking for when you're looking for staff? You know, is there anything they can do that's going to help their application?
Yeah, great question. So we're working to try and improve on this still. I've seen some great examples of job adverts where the minimum criteria is sectioned out perhaps in bold. As if you hit that minimum criteria, then absolutely apply for the role. At the moment, we will have the kind of basic requirements, and we're not at the moment just kind of sharing and showing, you know, what's the minimum, but that's something we're hoping to be able to do as a company very, very soon. What I would say is that if you feel you know, can hit most a percentage of the basic requirements that we're looking for, it's a role that interests you and excites you, then absolutely apply for it. Like we've already said about, you know, what's the worst that can happen. We'll always get back to every person who applies, whether that's a phone call or an email to say, thank you for your application, but you've not been successful this time. You can get in touch with us. We all love speaking in recruitment. That's why we work in it. So we love speaking. We speak to strangers every day. So we're never going to not want to speak. So you can find transferable skills. Mary Kate has spoken on meetings I've been at about lived experience and the challenges that people with a mental and a physical disability will go through, you know, each and every day. And that's transferable skills that you could put forward when you're speaking to us or on a cover letter with your application. And as a company, and I hope lots more companies are doing it, we're absolutely looking at that. And it's not just the experience that's directly related to the job, but those transferable skills. And we'll ask questions to kind of draw that out as well during the interview process. And all of our managers now, which has recently started across the Motorola business, get some training when they have a new vacancy. Some training on conscious, unconscious bias, about cultural differences. So we're educating the managers as we go as well through the vacancies that they have. So we're ever improving as week on week goes by. And I think, Jane, we're ready to be tested now, which is why we're here. It's not going to be perfect. There's still going to be some bumps in the road, but we're ready to be tested by the candidates and hear their feedback. Get more applications through, more shortlisted, more hired, and learn as we go.
I mean, I think that's great. You know, I think, you know, sometimes I worry with organisations who say, yeah, we're great, we're really the most inclusive. Actually, you're almost setting yourself up to fail, aren't you? But I think for me, it's always about intention. And the intention is that what you're trying to do is become more inclusive, attract the best talent, make sure that everybody thrives in the workplace. and that is a journey, and that you are learning as you go along. And you know, as I say, the more disabled people within the organisation, the quicker that learning happens. So it's great to know that, you know, that's kind of the journey you're on, and that we're on it with you. And in terms of candidates shining, I wonder if it's also about them looking at what you're looking for in a particular role and focusing on those. And as you say, bringing transferable skills. So if it's a management job, it may be they've not been a manager in that sector, but they may have managed elsewhere, even if it's in a voluntary capacity, and maybe bringing those, as you say, transferable skills through to you.
Absolutely.
So do you have any examples of adjustments that that you might make for some of the stuff? I know we've got a couple of case studies on your profile page, but if you've got some examples of the kinds of adjustments that you might have made for people?
I'll defer to Sadie first. That's okay, Sadie?
Yeah, absolutely fine. So what we would do is so it's all on an individual basis, isn't it? So we would talk to the individuals and understand what it is that they need. So we would then go and talk to our health and safety team and see what support that they can provide us in terms of any reasonable adjustments. So it could be if somebody had a visual impairment, there might be some software that we can use, or it could be that employees might need a better mouse, better equipment to be able to utilise and do their role. So for me, it's all about having that conversation with those individuals and seeing what we can do to try and support. We can also get access to work involved as well to see if there's anything that they can do to support. So yeah, whatever we can do to try and support, we will try and do what we can.
Yeah, that's really good. And the fact that you look at things outside, you know, physical things, but things like working practices and flexibility in working hours as well is true, isn't it? Because it's not all, you know, we tend to get people saying, oh, well, you know, it's all about ramps. Well, it isn't all about ramps, is it? It's about so many other things as well. And it can be, you know, working practices, communication, assistive technology, whatever it might be. So it's good that you're aware of that, and also that you're aware of access to work. I know a lot of organisations that, you know, we work with in the UK aren't even aware that that's available to them, and think that disabled employees are going to bring with them lots of costs, and that's absolutely not the case at all. And most adjustments, as we know, don't cost any money. It's and if it does, then access to work will contribute towards that. So that's great to hear. So we've got a couple of questions. So one question is, do you offer work experience at all?
We've offered it previously, obviously before COVID. We haven't done it recently in the last year because of the pandemic. But if we do get any requests that come through, then yeah, we'll definitely look at them and see if we can support in the area that person is looking for. So what we've done previously is we've worked with a college local to Rugby. It was an SEN college, and they came in and did kind of a 6-8 week placement with us. And then we do actually have one of the ladies now. She does work for us in a full-time role within our customer service team. So you know, it's great that we've been able to do that. But as I've said, we haven't recently, but we'd love to start back and doing it.
Do you think you might when we come out of the pandemic?
I hope so, yeah. I think it is one of the things that we want to look at to build the relationship back with the college, but also if we get ad hoc requests that come through as well.
Because sometimes it's a really good way of recruiting, isn't it, from your perspective? Because if someone's done work experience, you actually know how good they are at the job without having to get, you know, through interview or whatever. It can be quite a good way of doing that.
Yeah, and I think I'm just going to chime in for a second. And also, you know, in the States, we're looking at doing, you know, leveraging the schools and the universities a little more, because we have these education systems that have put so much time and effort into their disability resource centers. And, you know, you want to show those students or those kids that, you know, even before they graduate, like there's working environments that want their talent. And so really leveraging like that relationship between the school systems and, you know, us as Motorola, like how can we develop this pipeline so that, you know, when they do graduate, you know, we get them in the door before they graduate as like an intern or with work experience. And then, you know, when they do graduate, they could continue on into a full-time role. And so I think you look at like the life cycle of an employee, and you really want to try to welcome them as early as possible and say, we are an employer for all people, whether you have a disability or not. So that's something, that's definitely on our list as part of this journey, is to really work closer with the universities and the disability resource centers as well, to say, how can we make ourselves available and show like the students that we want their talent. So
yeah, that sounds great. And yeah, another question. So we've looked at the kind of younger end of the spectrum. I'm disabled and I'm 57. Would my age count against me?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. Get your application in. No, not at all. We don't look at the age. We don't ask the age. Been totally open, honest, and transparent with you, Jane. We've got some more mature managers, and I tell them not to, but they go straight down and just have a look at the education, because they do like people with experience and people that have been to college, university a while ago, more their era. And we say to them, look, we will look at experience, but we'll also look at early careers as well. So we've got a good early careers kind of sector within our HR team that Katie and Hillary look after. But we know as well, through the conscious and unconscious bias training, that people in their 50s and their 60s and beyond, they come with fantastic experience that you can't train up straight away. You're going to struggle to find elsewhere. So no, it's no hindrance at all, and everyone will be given a level playing field.
I'm here because I know that for a lot of disabled people, there might be like double discrimination that they face with some organisations. So it might be that you're disabled and black, or disabled and gay, or disabled and older, or whatever it might be, all that intersectionality stuff. And age is one that we don't talk about very much, but I do know that people who are older, and I can say that as being 60 now, can face discrimination within some organisations. So it's good to hear that that doesn't feature particularly within your organisation. And then, of course, we know that a lot of people become disabled during their working lives. So, as you're looking at disability from a recruitment perspective, presumably also there's a way of a culture of supporting people who are working for you and then acquire a long-term health condition of some description. So, the retention of that expertise is important as well, isn't it? Okay,
absolutely. So
yeah,
I was just going to say that if anybody did have a disability whilst they were working for us and they had some time off, or even if they didn't have any time off, we've got lots of different resources that we can try and use to support those employees in regards to our occupational health. We can do rehabilitation plans into work, and offer lots of different support as well. So really to help people as much as possible to stay in the workforce.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. We have another question. So I have a hidden disability, but I do need adjustment. Would I be better telling you or not telling you about that?
I would always say be open. Because we can start those lines of communication then, and we can talk really openly around what it is that individual may need. And then as an organisation, what we can do to try and support that as well. So, because it might be that it might take us a little while to work out what that is. So, as long as those open communication lines are there, we can try and do what we can.
Again, that's good to hear, because I know a lot of our candidates who have invisible impairments sometimes try and mask and just, because they're worried about what's going to happen if I mention that I have a disability. But that's not always the best thing to do, is it? Because if adjustments would help them shine in the process, then that's what you want them to do, isn't it? To be able to shine with what they would be able to offer if they did have those adjustments available.
Absolutely, and we do.
Oops, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. What I was just going to say is we do have employee groups as well to support our employees. So we do have a People with Disabilities Council, which is a worldwide, it's a global group. We also have within the UK, we've set up a wellbeing group where employees, we can give out some really useful information to employees and signpost them to, especially if you talk about invisible illnesses or if we talk around mental health as well. So we've got support services that we can direct employees to. So we use the Thrive app, and there's lots of other resources that we've got as well. Other groups that we have, we've got women's business councils as well. So there's lots of different groups employees can also go to for support or to give their views so that they can then be brought back to the business.
That's great. Mary Kate, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I think two parts. One is, the perspective that I've always looked at it from, as a, candidate to now an employee is, at the end of the day, managers, recruiters want you to be as successful as possible. And like from the second you submit your application, that candidate or that candidate, like that recruiter that's recruiting for that role wants to help you be as successful as possible when it's time to get in front of the hiring manager and as you progress through the employee life cycle. So, but in order for them to help you, it's like you have to have that line of communication. And so when you do feel comfortable to, identify your disability or what you do need, like it's just going to help them help you through the process. And so that's just the way I've always looked at it. But then kind of to piggyback on what Sadie said regarding the different disability or the different resource groups. I think you talked about the intersectionality, Jane, about how you can have a disability and you can have age, and you can also have like be a female in the workplace with a disability. I think Motorola, especially this last year, has put a big focus on DEI, and we've brought in a chief diversity officer. And one of the things that Tanisha has been doing is really talking about how this intersectionality works from the diversity perspective. And I think, you look at someone who's an injured veteran, like they can identify with the Veteran Business Council, but they can also identify as someone with a disability. But together, how can we bring our perspectives together to help push the company forward? And I think, that's something we're trying to do more and more of at Motorola. But again, like the more people we can get in the door with a disability or who are veterans or whatever diversity group they align to, like the broader of a diverse perspective we have.
That's fantastic. We don't have any more questions, but I'd like to give the opportunity to tell our disabled candidates why would they want to come and work for Airwave? What is it about Airwave that would be really attractive to them?
Yeah, so just to clear up as well, Airwave Motorola. So Motorola bought Airwave over 4 years ago now, and it's really ramping up this year that we're now merging into the larger company. So hopefully when we have one of these in the future as well, Jane, it will just be Motorola and take away that kind of, is it Airwave, is it Motorola? So yeah, I think, I've been here similar times to Mary Kate, and just found them an excellent company to work for. I speak to lots and lots of candidates, and I think the pandemic really showed Motorola in their true light. They put their workforce first, they put people first in everything they did. And Greg Brown, our CEO, on the town halls, the quarterly town halls, where he's speaking to all the employees, the first thing he speaks about is the people, and the last thing he speaks about is the people in the business. And I've heard from other candidates that it's perhaps not been quite like that in the company they've worked for, and the pandemic has shown some true colours and has made them, want to leave that company and search for a better, more inclusive employer. And it's been great to be able to say, well, actually, I've lived and breathed it in the 4 years that I've been with the company, and certainly over the last year. And then, as Sadie and Mary Kate have alluded to, they're not just stopping there, they're pushing the needle further on now. And we had a new value added this year to the company, which is I for inclusive. It's the first time Motorola have added to their core values in many, many years. And that's another demonstration. And it's not just a tick box exercise, or as I'd say in America, checking the box. It's lived and breathed. We've started in the UK and globally this month, diversity, equality and inclusion listening sessions, where we're inviting all employees to talk about it, because that's what we want to do more about, is talk about it and understand the lived experience and how we can not just sit on our laurels but continue to move forward. And with the councils that they've spoken about, there's just so much activity going on. So I think it's a really great time to join the company, and also to add value, get involved with the councils, The business wants to hear from people on how we can continue to improve and to help us to get to the next level, to employer, and then eventually to leader. And I heard some of the other Meet the Employer events that you did with Channel 4, Network Rail, ITV, and how fantastic it is what they're doing. And they are further down this journey, but our absolute aspiration is to get there.
Sounds great. It's very exciting. Sadie, do you have anything to add to that? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry, not quite sure I can top that, Matt, again, but just to echo, I mean, I've been with the business just over 2 years, and it really is a good company to work for, from every sense, really, in terms of the work that we do. You talk to a lot of our employees and they get a lot of sense of worth over what it is that we do. So we're protecting people. And what we're doing is we're making sure that if they need the police or the ambulance, you know, it's our communication that gets them there. So everybody's really, really passionate about what it is that we do. And I love seeing that as you go and you talk to other people around the organisation. But yeah, to echo what Matt said, it's a good company to work for.
That's great. Mary Kate, from a broader kind of Motorola perspective, what would you say to people thinking about, oh, shall I work there or not?
I mean, I think both Matt and Sadie have kind of hit it on the head, but, you know, really it comes down to the people that I get to work with every day. And, you know, I am an athlete at heart. And, you know, when I have people that I get to surround myself with at work that are constantly pushing me to think differently, but then are also, you know, on that journey with me, like, that is what gets me up every day. And, you know, for me, I've always said, like, success is way more than like a job title or, you know, the money you're making. Like, for me, success is being able to leave an impact on someone, on a team, on a, you know, community. And I think every day Motorolans are doing that. And, you know, that's what, you know, really drives me in the work that I'm doing. But also just because I get to surround myself with so many, you know, brilliant people that are, you know, I feel like making me a better person and, you know, challenging me to think differently. And, you know, that's what I love most about the work that I'm doing at MSI.
Sounds great. So thanks ever so much for your time this morning, particularly Mary Kate having to get up something like 5 o'clock in the morning. But thank you so much for being here today. And thank you to the candidates who've joined us today. And just to say that we will be holding more of these, of course, with other employers in the future. And if you want any support whatsoever to help you apply for jobs with Airwave, Motorola, or anybody else, please come to the Career Hive, where we can offer you lots of support tailored to you and that's accessible. And this recording will be available on the Hive very shortly. So thanks very much to everybody, and I hope you have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Abdul Karim.
Bye.